So first of all, let's get right down into it. What if you were in a situation where you're now finding out that, there's this plot, maybe a plot to buy the galaxy. But at the same time, we got opposition from the extraterrestrials who don't want us off the planet. But then there is a plan to get off the planet and like on the moon, maybe on Mars. And then at the same time, but what if this thing has been around for quite some time now to start explaining space travel, what is happening? So we're going to go over a few things today. Instead, not to see what we see on TV and how they're flying to space and all the things that they're doing. But as you know, with Why the Big Secret, your eyes are useless when your mind is blind. We're going to think why, and we're going to also think about why the how is never as important as the why. Why are we doing all that? Why are they doing space? Okay, yeah, we got this thing to public that we want to, be the first man on the moon, but maybe there was a bigger plot at play from here, right? But at the same time, then there's people that saying, no, we're going to fight against this. And so now it kind of explains why the extraterrestrials may not want us off this earth. And at the same time, why we're trying to get off the earth and why you should be focusing, why your kids and everyone else should be getting off this planet at some point. And the question is, who owns the moon and can the moon be owned and everything else? And you probably would never wrap your head around that to say that. So we're going to go over some of these things tonight real quick. But then at the same time, we're going to do what I think we should do best, which is what you see our power word, what we're here for is to question the narrative. We have to. So if you don't question the narrative or what I call the question, then it doesn't take you anywhere. So let's get right into what I'm talking about. I was looking over some documents, and one of these things we're talking about this is coming from the Space, I think, Settlement Institute, but there's this thing already that they have already put these contractor clause together long before we've been talking about this on Why the Big Secret. Not this, but typically these conversations, and probably in some cases, some of you watching maybe before you were born. But there's already a plan to what they're going to do, right? Who owns space? Now, we already know that the extraterrestrials saying that that's their lair. This is where they come from. Earth is a project planet. We need to stay here. But obviously now our ambition as mankind and humans are saying, let's get off this planet. But then they're like, well, then if somebody gets off the planet and they go over to Mars, who owns that? Okay, so that's something that we got to think about. But there is a plan. There is a plan. So let me get started to put what they're calling this right now. This act is called the Space Homestead Act. Okay, and it's an act to promote privately financed space settlements. Now, listen to that first line right there to kind of let you know why you now probably see the greatness of Elon Musk and Amazon and Galactic, the guy, everybody's trying to get to space, because they're operating on something totally different than what we're operating on. And we're sitting here thinking that they're talking about, just trying to get to Mars because humans need to know what's there. And that is not it. It is a bigger plot. The other definitions of this act is the fact that space settlement is a permanently occupied. So, all right, let me get back to it. So it's the Space Homestead Act. And what they're saying is whoever get there will, at this point, own the place, right? So listen to me. What is one thing that we don't have anymore? They tell you they're not making any more land here in the world, right? You can't make any more land. Therefore, everybody continues to buy it and buy it and buy it. But now that we're going out to space, the moon, Mars, all of these places, asteroids, it's a whole different ball game when it comes down to this. So the Space Homestead Act says the definition of space settlement is a permanently occupied facility, base, or city situated at a specific geographic location on an extraterrestrial body such as the moon, Mars, or an asteroid. So they already got this definition in this act that's been operating behind the scenes, okay? Then they're saying private entity, okay? So we're going to go over all this and then we'll come back and question this narrative. But they said a private space company is what they're saying, a consortium of private space companies and or one or more individuals that are not controlled by any sovereign state or government. This is what they consider a private entity. So space settlement and entities will be used later on in this whole thing. Examples of a state control of space company include, but are not limited to, government agency, or another government controlled company owning or controlling an effective majority of voting shares or having the ability to select the board of directors or executives. Merely being subject to normal government regulations, however, does not make a private space company government control. So basically what they're saying real quickly in this act that's sitting around that you didn't know, I didn't really know about, is that they're already saying the government can't own Mars. They can't do it. And that means, that explains to you that there's a power above our government, and they already put it in place that you're not going to own Mars. However, they can, encourage private entities to go to Mars or to Moon, because then if they do, then of course they've got their hands in a cookie jar. So they're saying that the findings that Congress find, you hear me? That number one, expansion of human habitat beyond Earth through the establishment of a permanent lunar settlement, a space airline, enabling ordinary people to travel there, is a normal continuing of the human drive to expand into the unknown territory, and will be of insatiable value for America and all mankind. So Congress is saying if a private company goes out there and establish a settlement, basically, I'll get into it real quick, that they're still going to have jurisdiction over this, and therefore that settlement is going to pay taxes all the way back to Earth to the United States. Okay. So, but we already know that you got the rich people, Rockefellers, and all these people running the government. The IRS is a private and owned entity. So could these people control be so vast that they're saying that get people out there, own it, but pass rules that's saying just because you made it to Mars, you get it, it's yours, but you're going to pay taxes back here for the land and then the landlord itself, okay? So also they're saying, number two, privately financed space exploration and settlement is preferable to the taxpayer, which is you and us, taxpayer financing, because the government needs to limit its own expenditure. So what they're saying is they don't want the taxpayers to pay for the trip to Mars and to colonize Mars. Why not? Why? Because supposedly we the people, then we will own it. Then you can't control us if we own, and our taxpayer money is paying for the trip to Mars and the colonization part, right? They already got this plan. I'm telling y'all that the plan is there. Also, it says space exploration, number three, and settlement with private financing produce a new tax revenue for the United States. Space exploration and settlement. So when you get off the planet and go to Mars and get your house on Mars, you still gonna pay taxes. The system is on point, right? So let's get into this, but I'm gonna give you some outs in a minute. A new addition incentive is needed because the potential short-term profit sources are currently much too small to attract billions of dollars of private capital necessary. So now the government's saying we need to incentivize those companies, give them tax incentives. We need to give them a way to get off this planet, to get more property so that we can make more money and hence pay the people who are running the country who are not government, right? It also says the potential value of the land on the moon. This is written out. The potential value of land on the moons, Mars, and an asteroid can provide an additional economic incentive for privately funded space settlement at no cost to the government. The government saying, and we'll come back to that. Like I said, we're going to question the narrative. There's currently no international law of private land ownership in space because most majority nations have deliberately refused to ratify the agreement governing the activities of states on the moon and other celestial bodies that was put in place in 1979, hereon called the Moon Treaty. The U.S. Senate refuses to ratify means that the Moon Treaty provisions are not the law of the land and in U.S. courts and therefore do not inhibit the action of a U.S. citizen or legislators, okay? It's getting deep, right? More importantly, the framers of the Moon Treaty found it necessary to attempt to write a rule forbidding private ownership of the land of the moon, clearly confirming that such objective had not already been accomplished by the Treaty of Principles of Governing the Activities of State in the Exploration of the Use of Outer Space, which is this, including the moon and celestial bodies, okay, in 1967, known as the Outer Space Treaty, nor by the UN Resolution GARS 1962. All right, so I'm, 25 plus, no, I'm 25 times 2 plus 3. So you'll figure that out. And one of the things that you have to look at is this stuff has been in place long before we got here, truth seekers, right? Do you know there's private stuff? They're already sending people to the moon and asking people to go there to colonize. And we thinking we're doing it. They get ready to go control the Mars and all of this stuff. We think about that's how we were operating in Earth, right? Here on Earth. You can buy land, you can divide it up to plots, and then people can buy houses. Did any of you think about the fact that while you're trying to do real estate here, that you need to be figuring out how to get your family off the planet to claim a whole asteroid that'll make you trillionaires? All right, so the other part of this, if the requirement of the law continued to be met, all rights, privileges, and responsibilities shall be immediately transferred by the sale, lease, or appropriate means to any other private entity. They keep using entities, all right? Private companies and all of that. The U.S. pledges to defend and recognize extraterrestrial properties by imposing appropriate sanctions against aggressors, whether it's public or private. If it pledges never to allow the sale of a U.S. citizen, they have to change this ordinance so that we don't get off this planet and slavery is legal somewhere else off the planet. It's Earth laws, right? But if you get off the planet, you can be a slave and there's no laws. There's no laws, right? This is real. It said, so at this point, they're saying that it pledges to never allow the sale to U.S. citizens or any extraterrestrial land. Okay, so anyway, let me bag up on it. Okay, so it said the U.S. pledges to defend and recognize extraterrestrial properties by imposing appropriate sanctions against aggressors, whether they're public or private. It pledges never to allow the sale to U.S. citizens or any extraterrestrial land which was seized by aggression. Okay, but it makes no pledge of military defense or recognize extraterrestrial properties. If after 10 years, these limits prove to have been insufficient to get privately funded settlement efforts started, Congress or some national or international authority and its delegates shall consider whether the maximum size of the claims should be enlarged, right? To give them a little more incentive. So it's saying the claimant must commit to consistency to make good faith efforts to promptly offer or arrange or for safe and reliable transportation to and from the settlement to all regardless of nationality who are willing to pay a fare to cover expenses and reasonable profit. All right, so let me keep going because I'm almost finished for us to discuss this. The claimant may not unreasonably deny land rights and the rights to transport passengers and cargo to any other safe, peaceful vehicle willing to pay a reasonable fee for the landing rights. But now, if you know asteroids now, they actually fly in an asteroid belt. So they're in continuously have their own gravitational stuff. So a lot of companies are now talking about building spacecrafts, not spacecrafts, but hotels on asteroids or little mini satellites that are rotating. Dr. Haynes and I talk about that as well. And so, like I said, if you knew, Project Black, he's going to be on the board. We're doing a board of directors. We're also going to share technology within the flying car. We're going to come up. I'm using that because we're going to get in the game and we're still going to interview the witnesses. I mean, now it's about ready to break through workshops and not workshops, but he wants to do workshops hoping young people or new persons that got an ideal of space travel, maybe get part of this thing, can come in and help as this, side of things begin to go. And so it's incredible. It's going to bring a lot of attention to Wild Big Secret and what we're doing, negative and positive. All right. But at the end of the day, when it's achieved, we're not talking 2 years down the road, y'all. We're talking 3, 10 years, could be 15 tops. He gave me a timeline of getting into space, but he already got rockets that'll go up miles and miles past Earth. It's already done. The other part of this is just having the desire to do this. And I'm just so happy to be where we are. And what attracted him, if I told a story, is that we're Project Black and what we're trying to make the discovery. And if y'all remember Samuel Chung, y'all remember that story? We did an interview on, I think we did one on Forbidden Knowledge, and I made a post, some of it here. Remember, he talks about that the first people on the planet was at some point yellow and black people, and he mentioned where they came from. So I called him yesterday and I was like, hey, I'm going to talk to you about Project Black. And still, he's like, yeah, I'm a part of it. Let's go. But now it's been another dynamic added component. You know, Dr. Haynes is going to give us access to trademarks and talent and be on the board. And we're going to build a craft to go find that planet. Now, along the way, you stop on asteroids, different places. And what if we colonize those things on the way? So this is real. And some of you might be like, okay, Rod, it's crazy. But no, it's real. It's real. But I'm sure you're talking about being excited, being part of that, being the institution or the entity that colonized. And now you got a place where we, you know, people and everything else. So, yeah, I mean, it's incredible. So the asteroid law will be private entities establish a permanent inhabited base on an asteroid and shall be entitled to full and immediate U.S. recognition up to 600 miles. But if it's a smaller asteroid that falls under 1 million miles, then you get the whole million miles. But if it's over 1 million miles, then you only get 600,000. We probably miss out on opportunity to talking about imaginable wealth. I didn't get it when, you know, Dr. Haynes like, you know, do you know what a trillionaire and all that stuff could be laid on down the road for your families? Okay, legacy, talking 15, 20 years, 30 years, you know, hope to be here. But either way, thinking so big to then get into the game, from flying cars to eventually space line travel, which he has a certification for, where he's working on for the cargo, but then there's no written one for passengers yet. So you mark my words right now, 15 years from now, there's going to be people selling property on Mars from Earth. We've seen it in a movie. You can buy property on Mars. Look at this. And we see it in the movies and we think it's a joke, but that's reality. That they're going to be selling passenger tickets for you to get off the planet. Now, there's another people to get off the planet because of existential level events. That's cool. But still, if we all had to get off this planet and go somewhere and land, somebody else is owning everything.